Dr. Jazz.
Hey guys,
Dr.
Samo here.
Jazz.
Thanks for checking out the channel and its contents. And if you feel like it, please do subscribe. Thanks so much. Enjoy the video. Bye. Oh, absolutely. I have you on so many records. I think I listened today to that early Arthur Blythe stuff, which I'm a huge fan of. And I just was thinking, what a unique guitar sound you were on the scene and still are, actually. I mean, like, amazing. Like, you were like a mix of, this improviser mixed with funk, and immediately you had your own voice. I mean, I want to go there. That's why also. But yeah, so thanks for finding the time, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you like that stuff, man. That's like yeah, Arthur Blythe is like, that's really where I cut my teeth and really learned a lot of stuff, man. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's very interesting. I've been watching some of your other videos, man. This is a great platform that you have, man, because you're really asking questions that nobody asks, and you discuss things that nobody is discussing about this kind of music.
Yeah.
But my background, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, right? And St. Louis is a big music town. Like, a lot of people don't understand how similar it is to New Orleans, because, well, when you think about the whole history of New Orleans, the riverboat musicians traveled from New Orleans to St. Louis and back. I mean, that was the gig. So, coming into St. Louis was like, and all of the same music that was in New Orleans was in St. Louis, except St. Louis was a lot more oppressed, racially, so to speak. So that, kind of more underground. New Orleans was much more open.
Yeah.
But so I was exposed to a lot of music as a kid, man. It's like in my neighborhood, I can remember like Albert King would come to town,
Ooh.
and there was a little spot on St. Louis Avenue and Marcus that was a liquor store, and when he came to town, it turned into a club. You know what I mean? Like, they moved all the stuff, and he had his big bus parked out in front of the place, the big shiny wheels. We used to be like, "Whoa, look at that bus!" We were very impressed. So I mean, Albert King, Muddy Waters, and all of the really heavy blues guys were in town all the time. I mean, you could go anywhere in town and always see a poster about BB King is in town, Muddy Waters in town, Bobby Blue Bland and BB King at this, they were always in town. And then there was the whole jazz element connected to Miles Davis and his whole history. Like, I used to have gigs where I would meet older cats who knew Miles. I remember when Miles, I gave him his first horn, and then you like, really, and hearing all those stories from those kind of guys. And then there was Chuck Berry.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, he's from
there too.
Yeah,
So like the whole rock and roll thing was going on. And then for me personally, I came to an organization called the Black Artists Group, right? Which was
there was Hamiet and Lester and those guys, right?
Yeah, Lester. All the guys that were part. It was like the another form of the AACM that was in Chicago. So that was really where I got started. I took my very first guitar lesson with Oliver Lake, believe it or not.
Really? Oh man.
I mean, he barely remembers that a lot of times when I tell him about it. But I was in 8th grade, and he exposed us. I got exposed in the 8th grade to avant-garde playing, because the other guys in the class, I had the guitar, but they were horn players. That's how I ended up taking the lessons. They were taking these lessons with Lake, and Lake had them playing all this, and they loved it, right? And he said, "Oh man, you got to meet Lake, man. You got to meet Mr. Lake, man. He's so cool. He's so cool." And I was like, "Wow, you should bring your guitar. Bring your guitar." So I was like, "Okay." And I remember he was like, "I don't really know that much about guitar, but I got this guitar book. It says that's an E, so I guess that's a whole.
Oh wow.
So just hit that ring for 4 counts, So it was like that. But I did get exposed to, read music, that whole thing. Wow. So and then later on, just being around that whole environment And as I got older, I started playing with those cats, man. Started working with Lester, J.D. Perrin.
Yeah.
So when it was time for me to go to New York, when I made that decision to get out of St. Louis,
How
I
did you decide that?
huh?
How did you decide that to go to New York? I mean, how did that happen? It's kind of natural, obviously, but still.
Well, I mean, it's like it was a lot of things going on, man. I could talk for 9 hours, man. I only take up all your time, but it's like this is really what it was. I was working with J.D. Perrin, who's great
Oh, I love JD.
multi-regis,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And I was working in his band, and the guy that's playing trumpet with him was part of the Black Artist Group, Floyd LaFleur, the trumpet player. So he told me that Charles Bobo Shaw was in New York, him and Joe Boy, and they had this band, Human Arts Ensemble, and they weren't happy with the guitar player.
Mm.
And I remember Floyd LaFleur said, "Man, you need to get up to New York, man. If you get up there now, man, you could probably get that gig, man." And I was like, "Wow, and I was going crazy trying to, pull it together. It was a 6-month period. It was like really a lot of drama. My mother was mad at me. We were going through all this. I want to go to New York. You don't know what you're doing. That whole
Sure.
thing, right? So then I finally got it together and drove to New York, stayed at my aunt's place, and that's what's really that was it. And I got the gig, and I had 3 things on my mind. I wanted to connect with Oliver Lake to try and get in his band. I wanted to hook up with Arthur Blythe because I met Arthur. He came to St. Louis playing with Chico Hamilton.
Oh, yeah.
And in Chico Hamilton's band was another great St. Louis guitar player who's another guy I kind of folled in his footsteps, Marvin Horn. I don't know if you know about Marvin Horn,
No,
but
I
he
have to check
played
him
with
out.
Elvin Jones for a time period.
Really? I don't know him.
Yeah. I
Really
think
don't.
he recorded very little with Elvin, but he came in after who's the other guitar player that Elvin had that was really my favorite guy? Roland Prince that played with
Oh, yeah,
Elvin Jones.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he replaced Roland Prince with Elvin's band. He played with Elvin for many, many years. He's a great guitarist. So, but
Man.
at this time, Marvin came to St. Louis playing with Chico Hamilton. So we were, oh, Marvin Horn is back in town with Chico. So we went to here, and then Arthur Blythe was in the band. And that's how I met Arthur Blythe, and we met him. So we went and got Arthur's record. And when we heard Arthur's record, man, we were like freaked out. He had, what was the name? The Grip. It was called The Grip. Bob Stewart,
Oh, yeah, on tour. Yeah, man. Yeah.
At this period, I was still looking at the avant-garde like, man, these cats getting over just making all this noise. Like, really? I can go to New York playing noise and I can probably survive playing noise, So I was, wasn't there. But when we heard Arthur's record, we took a step back like, wow, like, wait a minute. It can go there. It was kind of scary. It was like, wow,
Mm.
So long story short, I got on the road. I got over to Europe with Bobo, right? And Bobo hired me kind of reluctantly. That was the whole thing when I first got to New York. I got to New York in May 1978.
Already. Wow.
And I was in Europe with Bobo July 1st, 1978.
Wow.
That's how fast it went, right? So he wasn't really happy with me on one of them. So we get over there and we had a rehearsal in Italy. I'll never forget my first time in Italy, first time in Europe, the whole 9, right? So they start playing this tune, they swinging. And I was like, so what key is this in? Like, it ain't no key, man, just play, I said, well, it's major or minor. They said, man, just play, man, shut up, play. So I was confused and, kind of freaking out. And then Bobo said, yo, Joe, send this dude back to New York, man. I told you, I don't want to work with this dude, man. I don't want to deal with him, man. Get him out of here. I don't want to deal with this. So I'm like angry as hell, man. Like, wait a minute. Like, I didn't come all the way over here and, the plane ride was incredible, go back to New York. So I started playing angry, like, man, like, fuck you, man. Like, I ain't doing shit. Fuck you. And he was like, yeah, play that.
Yeah.
So the whole gig was me sitting there looking at him, trying to curse him out musically with the guitar.
Mm.
And out of that hate, so to speak, came such a great love and an appreciation of the music, you know what I mean? Because then I really understood that it wasn't noise. It was a form of something that was clearly being communicated intensely. And through that process, you know, because I was on the road with them we did a 6-week tour, man.
Wow, man.
You know, so over that time period, you know, I learned to find all of the softer places and the milder places and the I love you, Bobo places, you know what I mean, to play to him. And I learned the vocabulary of the music on that tour, man.
Mm.
So that was really how I got into it, quite accidentally, coincidentally, you know, just kind of, it just happened. And it's been the greatest gift ever.
Mm.
Because now I only play from it because that's what secured my position. Same thing when I got with Arthur, you know, because it was a lot of great guitar players in New York, man. You had Rodney Jones, who was playing with Dizzy Gillespie, like I said, Marvin Horn, who was killing it with Elvin Jones, you know, who was around at the time? The other guy, oh man, I'm gonna kick myself. He played with Dizzy Gillespie also, but I mean a lot of really great guitars. You know, Bobby Broom, all these guys.
Yeah, sure.
But Arthur wanted me to play because I was avant-garde and I could play that attitude, that color. So I knew that being true to that was also how I'm going to get paid. You know, how I'm gonna pay this New York rent. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I was very dedicated, and I was really blessed because Arthur got signed with CBS Records, and that band was. That band was phenomenal. You know, the combination with the tuba, the cello,
so swinging, man.
You know, the drum.
Yeah.
So it really opened me, and I was in new territory like every day, every night. It was like, wow, oh wow. It was like a constant discovery, you know, all the time. So it was a great experience for me, you know.
Yeah, that Elaborations record, man. I listened to that today, and it still sounds so fresh. It sounds really modern. You know, it's you don't even know it's like 43 years old or something, but it's so modern. Which is amazing, right?
I mean, you know, it's like, you know, the thing about this kind of music is that it's not an expression of like a time period. You know, it's not like, you know, well, I'm gonna mix something from the 60s with something from the 70s, man, and come up with something new. Or I'm gonna mix something from the 80s with something from the 90s and do something new. It was playing raw, universal sound and expression that's timeless. You know, because when you step into that level of improvisation, you know, it's about being formless. It's the form of no form, I always say. You know, it's you know, the form is no form. You know, and so and you'll get sincere human emotions, sincere, you know, expressions of things that are universal, you know, and you have to kind of open your ear to even hear that, you know, like to even understand it, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think that's why, you know, I think that's why.
Yeah. Kelvyn, do you have an option of gain on your microphone that you just turn it up a little bit more?
Yeah, I can turn up. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, that's way better.
Okay, way better. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
I got you. All right.
Just as I press this, but and how did you learn the language? By the way, I mean, because like in your playing, you know, I hear Ornette. It's obviously you. It's like it's interesting because before that, I didn't hear a sound like that on guitar. Honestly, like I mean, there were players like Sonny Chirac who I love, but he was different. And many other players, James Blood Ulmer, kind of played, but again, completely different. And you had this kind of, it's hard to describe, like funk meets Ornette or something. I don't know, like how did you learn
well,
the
you know,
language?
well, like I said, my foundation as a kid coming up in St. Louis, you know, I got my first guitar when I was about 12, 13 years old. You know, I got 4 brothers. 3 of my brothers served in Vietnam, right? So my oldest brother went to Vietnam, spent a year, he came back, he bought an acoustic guitar, he learned how to play in Nam, left it with me, went back, did another year in Vietnam, came back, right? So during that time, I was like 12, 13 years old, you know, my family had just moved to a new neighborhood, you know, and here I am a kid, like, you know, 12, new neighborhood, got to meet some new kids, you know, kind of lonely. So the guitar was like my little friend.
Yeah.
You know, in the very beginning of that period, right? I would sit on the back porch in St. Louis and just make stuff up. I mean, I didn't take any, I would just bang on it, you know, and just do the one, I call the one string songs. Like you pick one string, go up and down the neck on one string, and oh, that's a song.
Very cool, yeah.
You know, and you know, it's still something I like to experiment with, the one string, one finger songs, right? And I just did that, and that intrigued me, you know, sitting out with like I was sitting in the back porch, my mother had a grapevine, and these birds used to come and eat the grapes, right? And I remember the birds would come and sit there and listen to me, and I'd be trying to talk to them and doing stuff, you know, just because I'm just a little kid. I'm not thinking about a career in music or anything like that. I'm just bored to death, and I'm playing guitar, and this is cooling me out, and I'm discovering, you know, these sounds. It sound like a song, you know, it sounds like a song. So my approach has always been that. I always try to keep that part of me alive. I'm not, you know, I mean, you know, you can get into playing riffs and playing chords and playing all this other stuff and trying to impress people, you know, how well I can play fourths or how well I can play fifths or how well I can play sixes across the thirds, and, you know, but for me, it's trying to play, just being in touch with that thing on the inside and expressing that. That's more important. Now, if I learn how to do that by using fifths or fourths or some other thing, that's cool, you know. Then later I went to University of Missouri and took, you know, got music theory. They didn't have a guitar program, so I ended up at Southern Illinois University, where I studied classical guitar with a cat named David Engelke.
Really? Oh, wow, interesting.
But you know, I was such a rookie on acoustic guitar. I mean, this was like my second year of college, right? And all the guys in there, they've been playing acoustic. I mean, they've been playing classical since they were like 9. So they were killing. And I'm playing like the babies, the ding, ding, and it was just, for me, it was just embarrassing, man. It was just like, no, I don't, you know, I was uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, right? And at the same time, I'm playing in the clubs in St. Louis like every night, you know, playing the R&B stuff, playing all the funk, you know, all the funk things. And then I was getting some jazz gigs. It's time when I was working more, playing more jazz gigs. I worked with this guy, Ben Thigpen, who's the brother of Ed Thigpen, the drummer that played with Oscar Peterson.
Oscar, yeah.
Yeah, well, his brother is a great drummer in St. Louis, right? We had a band with Darryl Mixon, great bass player who just passed recently, really phenomenal bass player from St. Louis. And Ray Kennedy, another killer piano player from St. Louis. Sure. Yeah, Ray Kennedy was a phenomenal guy. And I think John Brooks plays saxophone. So that was a real experimental band. It was kind of like a Miles type thing, you know, like playing footprints and open it up in all kind of different directions. You know, and then I was playing other kind of standard gigs. So I was working when I was in college. I was gigging. In fact, my classical guitar teacher was like, okay, I can teach you some classical stuff, but you got to teach me some jazz stuff. And I used to laugh because I was like, come on, man. I'm still, you know, I'm still getting it together. But so I let that go. And when this opportunity came along to go to New York and hook up with Bobo and them, I said, I think it's time.
Yeah. I
need to make my move. So, and then I did study guitar at University of Missouri with a guy named Lyle Harris, who was really well known in that region. I mean, you know, you're talking about like cats who are just really big regionally. Like he was the guy in that part of Missouri, man. You know, older cat. And he showed me all of the fundamental scales. He showed me how to play major scales, minor scales, whole tone scale, diminished scales, and how to find them on the guitar. And then he didn't really teach me chords. He showed me how to build a chord.
Yeah.
He said, what chord you want? What note you want to have on top? Or if you want this note, okay, start here is the note on top. Now, what finger is going to reach what note of that chord on the string? You know, just figure it out, man. You know. So because he was a self-taught guitarist. So he taught me how to create chords.
Yeah.
He didn't show me chords. He was just saying, this is how you create chords. If you know the theory, you know, make it, and whatever you get. And if you can't get this note in there, then just play with the note. All you got is a third and a fifth or whatever, you know, work with it. So I had a very raw concept of playing the guitar, just all of the fundamentals, man, you know, work with the metronome, you know.
Sure.
So I purposely did not learn a lot of licks from other guitarists. Because coming out of Black Artist Group, the whole thing was to play yourself, man. You don't want to sound like nobody else, man. You got to play yourself, you know. And that was always the vibe. So, and I was kind of, I guess, arrogant and daring. So I just said, man, I'm not learning any licks by anybody.
I'm
just going to go for it. And especially stepping into the arena with Arthur and that whole school, I had to just go different. Now I did use as a reference. I remember before I left to New York, I was like, who are the top avant-garde guitar players? You know, like at that time, like them guys making that noise, right? And it was James Bloodomer and Sonny Chirac.
Yeah.
And I went and got their records and listened to them, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, Sonny was amazing, man. Oh.
You know, it was like, and I knew it was like, it's not about trying to imitate that. I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and try to, you know, I'm not going to try to do that. So I knew I had to find my own space. And then I ended up replacing Blood. Blood did a record with Arthur, Lenox Avenue Breakdown.
Yeah,
right?
Oh man, one's the best ever, yeah.
And I remember hearing that record and it was like, I don't know what the hell Blood is doing, man. He got the guitar tuned differently, you know, and his whole feel was, so I knew it was about, I was have to kind of bring my own thing to it. And fortunately, Arthur was open enough to do that. He never once ever said, do this like Blood or do this like, you know, he never, it was always do your thing. So that was another blessing that I had. I was given the freedom to just do my thing. Now the funk thing was like coming up, like I said, as a kid and playing all that R&B, you know, James Brown and stuff is like, and all the R&B during that time was like, that was foundational stuff as a kid. Like I think back in high school and in those early days, I did a lot of gigs in St. Louis. I played a lot of R&B gigs. I was like, you know, 16 years old playing in the clubs, you know, with grown folks, you know, and then my mother and my brothers would be there in the club. So it's 1 o'clock. Okay, you pack your stuff up, you gotta go. You know, I wasn't allowed to, but we were in there playing the gigs. And in those days, I really had no music theory. I hadn't really taken any theory. So I didn't know the names of any chords. I didn't know the difference between a minor, a major scale, minor scale, what a fifth or a sixth was. But I knew hundreds of songs. And I always go back to, how did I play those songs and how did I know what I was, I just knew,
Shapes,
I just memorized shapes and colors. Yeah. And I remember what Fred had started on. You know, and I played a bunch of music, man, you know, R&B stuff. So I wanted to keep that innocence as I developed professionally, was to be to have my own spot. But I wanted to keep the funk in lock, because I knew that speaks, you know, I knew that syncopation talks.
Yep.
It's a very important part of the expression of our music. So I just kind of really locked in on that and let the tonality take me where it was going to take me, you know.
It's nicely put. Yeah. I mean, you were a natural choice then for Defunkt, right? I mean, beside Arthur's thing and Bobo, then there's the whole Defunkt thing. And, you know, I listened today also to Thermonuclear Sweat just to get in the vibe to talk with you today. And man, that record, that's a monster record. Like,
yeah, you know, it was great. You know, like,
Defunkt,
I mean, it was an interesting thing that happened to me, man. I was working with Arthur and Defunkt at the exact same time. And we would do like 5-week tour. I would do like 5 weeks with Arthur and come back, do 6 week with Defunkt, then come back and do 3 weeks with Arthur going through the States, and then do the same thing with Defunkt. You know, I used to wonder, they never, and I said, somebody out here booking these gigs got to know who I am, because they never crisscross these tours. I mean, that lasted for about 5, 6, 7 years, man, you know? So the cool thing was, like, on the road with Arthur was like a laboratory. You know, like I said, we were experimenting every night. I'm finding new stuff and doing all kind of crazy stuff and coming up with new sounds. And this is without any electronics. I was playing like a Gibson L5, right? And I wasn't using pedals. You know, I mean, it was the challenge with that guitar was finding a spot on the stage where I didn't get feedback.
Yeah.
You know, and because that was a big sounding band too. It was a big band. And Bobby Battle played, he had this 24-inch ride cymbal, I'll never forget, man. And that cymbal would eat up the frequency range. And I was playing for my high E string, I was using a 14.
Wow.
Right?
Really? Oh man.
Yeah, on that, so that when I played the note, you could hear it. You know what I mean? Because it was really
sustain and
stiff.
everything. Yeah. Obviously.
But I mean, I was developing a lot of guitar because my thing there was to be as sonically effective as anybody playing distortion and pedals and wah-wahs, but without the wah-wah, just how can I create that with just fingers and on the steel, right?
Mm.
And then when I got with Defunkt, I could use all of the pedals and I would still use the same techniques I learned for trying to create that without the distortion. Now doing it with distortion, you know, gave me a whole nother palette. And the fact that I could do it on back-to-back gigs like this tour, boom, then come out on this tour, and I'm like, you know, I just learned this. My fingers just got strong enough to do this now, and I can come on a Defunkt and just like exploit it, you know, like just, you know, sell it and put it into the funk realm and make it more palatable, so to speak, to the average dancer on the floor. So that was a lot of fun, man. But like I said, Defunkt was kind of like an accident too in a way. And that I've been playing with Joe's band and he was just trying to cut through, you know, because going the straight jazz route was one thing, but you know, he wanted, so just one day he said, I'm gonna start a funk band. I was like, okay, you know, but I was still like, but I'm not playing Earth, Wind and Fire licks, and I'm not playing the licks. I'm not, you know, I'm not switching up. We can play funk, but I'm going to be true.
You're going to be you,
to my thing, right? So I was almost trying to, you know, almost like I said, like almost trying to destroy whatever was happening. You come up with a good, I'm gonna destroy it with this. I'm just, you know, forget that. And you know, but looking at the polyrhythmic concept, because I'm really big into the concept of polyrhythm and mixing this rhythm against that, you know, that came into being with me working with this guy, Masabumi Kikuchi, a Japanese keyboardist, and then also I did work with Steve Coleman.
Steve, I wanted to ask you about that. Those records,
yeah. So anyway, so when we started Defunkt, that was the thing, you know, like, because the first tune he said, well, everybody can have a funk tune in E, so let's do something in E. So we came up with a tune. Now we need a tune in D, you know, let's do a tune in D, and that turned out to be the song D Funk.
Yeah,
that's where it came from, right? And E Funk, I think it was that
unisono line. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how it came about, and my part in that was to destroy all colors. You know, I mean, I was just, you know, keeping it funky and danceable and playing all of what I know is a dance rhythm and a funk rhythm, but the tonality being, you know, you know, just sonic more so than tonal, you know, sonic.
Yeah.
Sonic funk. Yeah.
It's interesting. I listened to those records and it's like, you know, all the records that came, like Living Color and let's say with Vernon and, you know, even Red Hot Chili Peppers, all these guys basically, I think they must have listened to you guys. I mean, I'm like 120% sure they did. I mean.
No, I mean, well, I guess you don't know, but you know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers will tell you that they started the band as they were imitating Defunkt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know,
I didn't know that.
I mean, they would tell you that. In fact, and Anthony Kiedis, in his biography, he talks about the time that we met, because one time we were opening for the Talking Heads out in California at the Greek Theater.
Oh, wow.
Right. We went on a tour, man, where we were opening for, you know, we opened for Prince, man. We opened for, you know, The Cure, right? And we played out in California at this thing. And I remember, you know, we were on stage when we were Joe was introducing everybody. Man, it was these cats in the audience going crazy every time, you know, like Kim Clark on bass. I'm like, who are these cats? These nuts in the audience. So later, we did a gig at the Whiskey A Go-Go that same night, right? You know, that's back in the days, the band, you know, we played, you know, the Greek Theater. Now we're doing the Whiskey A Go-Go that night, right? So we're playing there, and the Chili Peppers came through. This is before they had a record out, right? And I remember they came through hanging out in our dressing room, man, and they were popping off. I mean, they were on acid or something. Man. They were standing on the tables and pop and dancing and bouncing around. And me and Joe were looking at these guys like, man, who are these nuts, man? But they were big fans of Defunkt, right? And then later I met Kiedis in New York, and he asked me, you know, he said, man, I don't have the kind of talent and stuff that you got, man, but I'm just a white guy, man. I don't know how to do it, but I just like to dance, man. You think I got a chance, you know, or doing it in this business? I said, Man, go on and do your shit, man. Don't nobody care, man. Go ahead. Do your thing, whatever you feel. You know, I didn't know that was Chili Peppers. And he put that story in his book later.
Oh yes,
that he
Scar
met
Tissue. That
because
I've read it years ago, but
yeah, I remember meeting him, you know, because there was a lot of people who used to tell me about the Peppers, and then he came through and told me about his band, and you know, we're going to be famous. We're going to be famous. I said, okay, dude, go for it. Go get them. You know, so they did model that stuff behind Defunkt.
Defunkt, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they will tell you that. You know, they'll tell you that.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah, it's cool, man. So, like I said, I feel blessed that I got a chance to be in the straight up hardcore avant-garde jazz world and to be what we were doing in that punk funk thing at the time. Oh, and stretching that out. Cause I mean, Defunkt, I mean, oh man, we worked our butts off. We were everywhere, man. You know, we were everywhere. So yeah, man, that was a blessing, man. That was you know, Vernon came through, his thing jumped off from there. And then I jumped off with my band from there. In fact, when Living Color first started, they used to open for Kelvinator, right?
Really? Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, they opened for me at
Yeah.
the Lone Star Cafe. I don't forget that, you know, because my record came out first.
The Funk It Up, right?
Right, that came out
that's
before
a cool
them.
record,
Yeah, and then they used to open for me, you know, which is crazy, you know, when I look back on it. But then they let me open for them later. I did open for Living Color a couple of times. So
how did that record happen, by the way? When did you decide you want to become a band leader? I mean, Kelvinator. How did it happen?
Well, you know, there was a period where Joe kind of fell out of, you know, Joe went through some issues and Defunkt broke up. And at the same time, so did Arthur Blythe's band change.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, I guess it was destiny. It was destiny, you know. It was the first time in New York I had ever been broke, man. You know, because I was working so much all the time. And then all of a sudden, all the work stopped. You know, and I was like, hey. And I remember calling the phone company, go, something's wrong with my phone. Nobody's calling me. You know, something's wrong with my phone. So it was time to do something, man, you know. So I said, well, I need to do my own thing, you know. I mean, I need to do my own thing. What am I gonna do? Sit here, you know, wait for the phone to ring, you know, make the phone ring. So I put Kelvinator together, man, to have my own vehicle and, you know, and to get that going. So, you know, that worked out pretty cool too, man. I had a lot of fun. A lot of fun with that, man, you know.
Was that easy for you, becoming a band leader, like totally natural? Because, you know, when I listen to the tracks and there's some YouTube footage and stuff, you seem like a natural born leader as well, besides being a sideman. But like, how was that like in the beginning for you?
Well, you know, I guess it's always been a part of me. Who I am was to go my own way. Just like my whole approach to playing the guitar, I took my own direction, you know. I mean, it was really coming out of Black Artist Group and that whole attitude about, you know, being strong and going for it. You know, I remember when I first went to Europe with Bobo, and it was my first time going to Europe. I'm like 22 years old. I'm a kid. And he was telling me, you know, and, you know, it's all about this attitude, you know. Now, you gonna be on the road with me, you know. You better act like you the baddest motherfucker in the world. Don't be walking around like you a kid, like you don't know nothing. You know, he put it on me like, you know, about how I should behave while in his presence, you know. And he's like, you better act like a bad man. You better be a bad motherfucker. That's, you know. So I took on this really crazy arrogance, man. It took me a couple of years to kind of trim that down. But, you know, I just walked through New York like, charge that what? You know, what? Say out, you know, I was just like, used to go on gigs and just, you know, let me sit in, just go try and steal the show all the time. Because, you know, we were also, man, New York, you know, is rough, man. You gotta, you know, if you don't play, you don't eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I always had a thing like whatever gig I had to get another gig out of that gig. If I'm playing tonight, I have to get somebody else to hire me after tonight. I got to do something tonight to make somebody say, oh, I want you to come play with me next week. You know, so always like whatever the music was, play with the singer, whatever. But when I got my little moment to like, you know, oh, you get a little solo right here. It's like, oh, really? You know. What, you know, and even if it was out of context and somebody said, oh, yeah, I like that. You did that. Yeah, come do this, you know. So it was on the soul. When the music stopped, when Joe's band stopped and Arthur's band, you know, they took those breaks. It was kind of like, I won't say second nature, first nature, you know, to just keep going, you know,
Do our
just
thing,
keep
yeah.
going and keep doing it. So I jumped on it, and yeah, man, you know, I've always had my own concept, my own ways of wanting to do stuff. So, you know, I got a chance to do that. Like I said, I was groomed to that through the music, the scene that I came up with, you know, was
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
about boom, you know, you got to be a strong individual inside of the group. You know, you inside of the group, but you got to be totally you, like at the same time. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess it's just a natural part of what I do, man.
And
Yeah.
also the tunes were strong. I mean, that Funk It Up and that what's that first one? Good Love, and
Yeah, good love, right. Yeah, yeah.
it's a strong record. I mean, it's
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. You
you
know,
know.
like my thing about the thing is, you know, I come from a generation of musicians that really having come up on funk and R&B music kind of prepared me to understand jazz and gave me the foundations for jazz. You know, like with Miles Davis, I didn't understand Miles Davis, like Bitches Brew and all of that stuff. It used to go over my head, you know, and it wasn't until he did On the Corner.
Hmm.
And when I heard On the Corner, because it was funky and don't boom bang,
Yeah.
you know, that whole funk was like, then I understood it. Then when I went back and even listened to it in a silent way, I heard the pulse in that before I couldn't hear the pulse. Then I heard the pulse and how it was just all spread out,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
but it was inside of a rhythm. It's still inside of a rhythm. You know what I mean? So, um, so discovering that is what really kind of led to like the kind of music that I write, and the fact that my experiments with odd metered music,
Yeah.
right? That I from Masabumi Kikuchi and even with Steve Coleman, you know, I'm still about in fact, even in St. Louis, I was writing tunes in odd meters. Even before I got to either one of them,
Well,
I was writing in seven. For some reason, that just you know, because if you're trying to do something different, man, the easiest way to do something different is just don't do it in 4/4.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And even a regular riff comes off with another thing on it. It's like, oh, wait a minute, it turned what? You know,
Yeah.
so the easiest way to separate yourself is to get out of the matrix, so to speak, and set up another grid,
Yeah.
you know. So I found that to be just a powerful way to be an individual and also to express some things that are not getting expressed in the other music, you know, because there's a lot of stuff inside of the odd meters that I think is more natural because I don't think the universe was created just on 4/4. I mean, when I think about how
Mm.
stars are formed, and if you want to get into the physics and the math, you know, of how a black hole, you know,
Sure.
becomes a black hole, or how a star becomes a star, how it stops being a star, how a planet is formed, you know, or how fire gets to be burned, the mathematical formulas are not one, two, ready, go. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's like those, you know. So to me, being familiar with those rhythms, you know, like that was another thing, like avant-garde, like practicing. Instead of working on scales, I was always trying to imitate sounds. Like the bus is going by. What's the bus sound like? You know,
Mm.
all those
Yep.
kids over there screaming, you know, just sit in your space and just listen to everything going on outside and try to copy every sound you hear. You know, you know what I mean? Try
Yeah.
to imitate every sound you hear. A car going by, somebody screaming, a dog barking. Where's it at? Where's it at on the guitar? Where's that pitch? Where's it at? You know, spending a lot of time just trying to play sound as opposed to scales and patterns. It's about sound. You know, what did it sound like the big boom when the world started? I bet it was a bass tone. We couldn't even pick up, man, some bass out there.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need another set of ears to hear that bass, man. You know, I would love to be able to hear that bass. Can you imagine the original big boom? What kind of bass that was, man? Damn. You know,
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
that Jeep bass sound like piccolo. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, I'm always in that head space of looking for those sounds and how they express things. You know, like later on when I worked in theater, I started working in theater. What propelled me in that was when somebody asked me to write some music for a scene, I always thought about what does your liver and your kidney sound like when somebody tells you this? What is happening? How does your kidneys do? You know, like what do your kidneys and your liver say? I always write when it comes to theater and movies. I write from the like, what are your kidneys, liver? What does that sound like when something happens to you? Even happy, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that's been like a motivational part for me about an approach, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Steve before, and you know, it's kind of all connected. I mean, you know, Steve played with I know Doc Hammond and Abdul, that trio they had, and
yeah, I remember them. Yeah,
which was a great band. Doc told me that, and then you know the whole M-Bass thing started, and you guys did On the Edge of Tomorrow and World Expansion. Like, how was the vibe back then when this whole movement happened? Because there's like a whole bunch of monster players arriving from that. I mean, I think almost everyone, if I think back now, from that crew is like band leaders and, you know, composers and doing their own thing and their own voice. Like, how did that happen in your connection with Steve?
Well, you know, I have to give credit to Steve for putting it together. He heard it and put it together, you know. Steve is from a similar background. Steve and I are the exact same age, right? And I think we actually moved to New York the same year. He came from Chicago. I came from St. Louis. And I remember running into him at jam sessions. You know, back in those days, you're going to jam sessions trying to prove your worth, right? And I remember he used to come in, him and this other saxophone player from Chicago, Dwayne, or what was Dwayne's last name, man? Him and a tenor player, right? And they would come in on a jazz session, you know, doing these like standards. And the two of them always soloed at the same time and took it out. You know, it might be Autumn Leaves, do-do-do-beep, and then both of them would come in, both at the same time, like, you know, like letting you know, like, this is where we at.
Yeah.
So when I used to see them, I said, well, oh, I like that guy. They crazy, you know. So, but you know, but Steve wasn't really like a super friendly guy. He was kind of weird dude, you know. I would see him on the street and he just wouldn't say nothing to you, you know, like, what? And then, because, you know, I saw him the night before and said, hey, man, I saw you last night. He was like, but then all of a sudden out of the blue, he called me to be in his band. And I was like, this dude that didn't speak to me called me to be in his band. Like, so it was weird. I mean, so then we got together and he said, oh, so what you doing this week? I said, well, I got a gig Friday and I got a rehearsal on Thursday. He's like, what time is your gig? Oh, I got to be there at 6. He said, well, what time is your rehearsal? I said, I finished that at 1. Okay, so we're going to rehearse Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and on Wednesday, we're going to rehearse 1 o'clock when you get out of your other rehearsal. Thursday, and before you go to your gig on Friday, we rehearse. And, you know, he wanted to rehearse every day. And I was like, wait a minute, man. I didn't tell you I wanted to rehearse every day, man. But I rehearsed every day. Because in those days, what else did I have to do, man? If I didn't have a gig, I didn't have nothing. So we rehearsed every day.
Oh, yeah, that's why it sounds like, yeah.
And what was cool is like Steve didn't want to count anything off. Everything was a musical cue. You know, the song starts off, and that was the starting tune, right?
Yep.
So everything was so musical and just so polished. And he really, once again, let me do my thing. He had compositions, but you know, he might every once in a while have a little guitar part for me. But for the most part, he like just let me paint, which was another blessing and the other reason I was able to hang with that band because I was allowed to be myself, you know. So, you know, I met Jerry Allen there. I met Cassandra there.
Cassandra, yeah, sure.
And Smitty Smith was a drummer.
Man on drums then. Oh.
Right, you know. So that was a fire band. Plus it was odd meter stuff, you know, and a lot of cats, you know, were like picking up on it. But since I had been working with Masabumi, you know, that wasn't a thing for me. I already knew how to get around 7/5, you know. Masabumi had a hip concept for playing odd meter. He always, so that it would swing and have a funk to it, he always cut it in half. You know, so that your phrase was always something that was half, so it would always swing. Sky be a biggie, ooh, ya do biggie, ya ooh biggie, ya ooh biggie, right? And then you could like, ya ubi, you beat, ya ubi, you don't, ya ubi, ya stick on. You know, you could play around with the phrase, but the phrase is always half inside of the odd meter. So it made it easier to fall into the groove with it, right?
Actually groove with it, yeah.
Yeah, so when I got to Steve, I was just like, you know, I was just floating through that because I had spent a lot of time on it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a great band, man. I mean,
it's a monster band, yeah.
You know, it was like because we have rehearsed so much, the first gig on the road, because usually with a band, you go on the road the first night, you're trying to warm up, you trying, you know, we went on first gig, you know, knocked them in the head, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of, I mean, Steve was, you know, he was like a slave driver on one level, but it was good. It was a good thing. It was a very good thing, man.
I mean, he must have been also very open because, you know, Jerry contributed some, there's Yo composition that Yoho.
Yeah, that was one of my, he let everybody write a song.
Yeah, right,
I mean, you know, that's the thing about being really tight and being loose at the same time.
Yep.
You know, it's really, that's the magic. The other thing that's happening inside of this music, you know, it's like two extremes exist at the same time. Two opposites can exist at their extremities at the exact same time.
Yep.
And creates a balance. And that's what it was. He was, you know, very strict on one level, and then it was also very open at the same time. You know, which I think is the importance about this type of music, and why I think, you know, people should know a little bit more about it because it does represent openness. Steve had this thing that came from this ninja thing because you know, the 5 elements came from this book, the book of the 5 elements about the ninjas and stuff. And there was a thing about the ninja as he's walking through the field, he has to be open on all sides. That was a concept about you got to be ready for somebody to come down from above or below. You know, you got to be open on all sides. So that was an approach we had about playing the music. We had to be open on all sides when we play, like be open on all sides to be ready, which was what I was doing with Arthur, you know.
Absolutely,
yeah. So it was a great experience, man, you know.
Yeah.
Great experience.
Yeah. Amazing. I wanted to ask you about your playing, your band leading lately. The last one I heard was that Cube Root record, which I love, by the way. Have you been preparing something new also in the band leading department, or like, well, what's happening there? Are you still?
I got some new music I'm working on now because what I'm doing now is like I'm putting it all together, like everything I've been through, right? And so the music I'm working on now is how can I describe it? I'm definitely staying true to like certain odd meter elements. I'm messing around with some new electronics. I'm using this pedal that I'm seeing very few people really use. I really got turned on to it by Will Calhoun. It's the H9 pedal. I don't know if you know this pedal.
No.
Yeah, the H9 is incredible. Now they got the H90. I got to get my hands on H90. But I got a little endorsement with Eventide through Vernon. Vernon hooked me up, man. Vernon's a great dude, man. And him and Will. So this pedal is allowing me to do so much incredible stuff. Like if you go to my YouTube page.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw those. Yeah.
You know, people don't really understand how those what it is behind those sounds, man. Because what I'm getting is I'm getting a delay, right? And say I get 3 delays, like bip, bip, bip. Well, each one of the delays is a different harmonic structure, which is an incredible thing you can do with this pedal. And I also can control the delays and set up whatever rhythm I want. Like the delay could be pop, E, or it could be E, or E.
That's very complex.
You know, so I can create a rhythm, and then there's a tonality change for each delay sound. And it's allowing me to play some stuff, man, that I could never play. Otherwise, I would need 3 guitar players to play exactly what I'm playing in a different harmonic point, you know, really deep. So, so that's coming forth. Plus, I'm just looking at things lyrically too. You know, I'm going to talk about things, issues, and stuff. You know, because I've always been somewhat like socially conscious politically aware, kind of like Living Color. Living Color's done such an excellent job of dealing with that, man.
Yep.
I mean, they're really great at that. So I just want to make sure that, because the way things are today, I mean, the times we're living in now, I mean, we have to talk about what's happening, but I mean, but from a universal perspective, similar like to what I'm talking about, the music. So so that's coming forth soon, man. But what I've been doing in the meantime, I've been composing for theater and doing film stuff. That's kind of like
Really? Oh wow, okay.
what has absorbed me over the last little set of years. I've been out of the job, but I got started. I was teaching at this place, the Harlem School of the Arts. And while I was there, I interacted with the Classical Theater Harlem. And I became the resident composer for this theater company. So, I was writing music for theater, which I never thought in my life, in my wildest dreams, I would ever be involved in theater that way. I always avoided theater. I used to catch playing on Broadway. Oh, man, I don't want to do that, man. That's too stiff, man. That's square. That's square. And I ended up being a musical director in the theater world and, being a part of several productions with Classical Theater Harlem. We did Shakespeare and, a lot of classic stuff. We did Ain't Supposed to Die Natural Death. So, I did a lot of really, The Great Mac Daddy, but Paul Carter Harrison. I was able to put the music on that. So, and then that led to me doing a couple of film projects. I did this film with Cuba Gooding Jr. called Freedom. That's been out for a while. And I also got some stuff in this production of Black Nativity. I did a theater production of Black Nativity with oh man, now my man is going blank. What is his name? Andre DeShields, right? So as a result, some people came on to make a movie out of it. So they did the Black Nativity movie, one with Nas and Mary J. Blige and all that. So I got a track in that film, But and I've been teaching as well.
Oh wow, okay. Great.
Yeah, which is I'm finding to be in line. I got some students that have done pretty well out here in the world. So that's kind of nice to watch. One of my forms is this girl, Lakeisha Benjamin, saxophone player.
Really? Oh wow, sure. She's amazing.
And she was at Harlem School of the Arts, and a few other people, Kathy Rodriguez and some other folks. Melanie Charles is another fine vocalist, artist, So what I'm doing now, man, I'm working on this project. I've been working on it for some time. It's getting close to finish, but I've gotten out of the thing of feeling like I need to produce a record every year or every,
Yeah, it's changed the industry also. I mean,
because it's not. It used to be like I could put out a record and but now you can't make any money because everything is on YouTube for free. I mean, everything is on YouTube for free. So, it's not the same income thing. So it's not the same kind of motivation. But right now, I do feel I need to express how I feel about what's going on right now, musically and socially, politically, and sonically, So it's coming soon. That's all I can say. It's coming soon.
Beautiful.
It's coming. But if you look at the stuff I got on my YouTube page,
I saw those videos.
Some of those
man.
things,
I love that stuff,
it's related to that kind of a color, things related to that color. But I'm writing some songs about my family. I'm doing some things. I got, like I said, I had 3 brothers that served in Vietnam. And, that's an interesting story I just want to tell about that. It's funny how when wars happen, then the next generation comes along. They don't know anything about the previous.
True.
Because I lived through every day of Vietnam, watching the news and this and that. And then now nobody knows any of that kind of stuff. It's like crazy. But that's, that's life. I mean, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel the need to document.
To reflect back to a little.
Yeah.
That's important. Yeah. Fantastic, man. I'm looking forward to a new record when it comes out.
Yeah, man. I did some stuff with Cassandra about a year or two ago. I recorded some music with Cassandra Wilson. I think she may have it on her website or something like that.
Oh, I have to check it out.
But I've been really chilling though, man. I've been chilling, man. And I'm grateful that I'm in a position where I can, comfortably just take a break, from the rat race of the music business. But I still been involved in music and still doing my thing, But like I say, something new is coming soon. Just keep your eyes open.
Super. Man, Kelvin, if you ever come to Europe, drop me a line. You know, we'll get together for some
Yeah,
food or
please,
whatever.
yeah, for
So
sure, man, for
let me know
sure,
when you're
man,
around.
for sure. You know, I'm looking to do that right now. I'm like I said, I'm working on some things. I'm looking to move into another space and set up another studio situation for myself. You know, and that's really how I think the bigger production thing is going to come. And I'm still working in, you know, doing some film projects, but soon come.
Beautiful. Man, I'll
Yeah.
leave you a nice, what is today? There, you have an afternoon there. I'll leave you a nice afternoon on, and thanks for sharing some of these thoughts, man. I really appreciate it. It was so nice.
No, man, thanks for asking me and inviting me to come do this, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share what's been going on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for responding and sharing some of these thoughts.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
putting it on, man.
Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Colin.